The silence after the great explosion was almost as shocking as the blast itself. For several minutes, nobody moved. The remaining Zirathi drones stood like statues, their red eyes flickering as their hive mind tried to process what had just happened. Admiral Carter emerged from his shelter and looked at the massive crater where the city center used to be. The crater was so big that he could not see the other side. Smoke and dust still rose from the melted ground at the bottom. "Damage report," he said calmly into his radio, as if destroying 500,000 enemies was just another day at work. "All human personnel accounted for," reported Commander Lisa Martinez. "No casualties. Allied forces report minimal losses," added Captain Rodriguez. The alien soldiers followed the evacuation routes perfectly. General Zektar crawled out of his bunker and stared at the crater with his mouth hanging open. His yellow eyes were wide with disbelief. How? Was all he could say. The remaining Zirathi forces were scattered around the edges of the city. Without the central mass of their army, they were confused and leaderless. The hive mind that controlled them had been damaged by the shock of losing so many drones at once. "Sir, enemy communications are in chaos," reported Ryan Clark. "They seem to be receiving conflicting orders." This gave Admiral Carter an idea. "All teams, begin Phase 2. Time to finish this." The humans came out of hiding and began the final part of their plan. They had not just destroyed the main enemy army. They had also cut the remaining forces off from their supply lines and support ships. Master Sergeant Chris Taylor led his team to attack the enemy's fuel depots. Sergeant Major Kevin Martinez took out their ammunition storage areas. The humans moved fast and hit targets that the confused Zirathi could not defend properly. Within hours, the surviving enemy forces were out of fuel, low on ammunition, and completely lost. Some groups of drones wandered around aimlessly. Others stood motionless, waiting for orders that never came. "Sir, large groups of enemy forces are surrendering," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks with amazement in her voice. "The Zirathi are actually giving up." This had never happened before in galactic history. The Zirathi never surrendered. They never retreated. They never showed fear. But they had never faced anything like human warfare before. Technical Sergeant Rachel Kim was monitoring enemy communications from orbit. "Admiral, the Zirathi fleet is pulling back. They are leaving the planet." Admiral Carter allowed himself a small smile. "All teams, secure the area and begin prisoner processing. We have won." The alien soldiers came out of their hiding places and stared at the humans with new respect. These 20 small creatures had done something that 100,000 alien warriors could not do. They had defeated the most feared army in the galaxy. General Zetar approached Admiral Carter slowly. The big Kraxen's attitude was completely different now. Instead of mockery, his voice showed deep respect. "How did you know?" he asked. "How? Did you know they would fall into your trap?" Admiral Carter looked around at the destroyed city and the thousands of captured enemy soldiers. "We studied them. We learned their patterns. Most importantly, we did not try to fight them the way they expected to be fought." "I do not understand," General Zektar admitted. "Your people fight with honor," Admiral Carter explained. "You have rules and traditions. You meet your enemies face to face and test your strength against theirs. That is noble, but it is also predictable." He pointed to the crater. "Humans fight to win. We use any advantage we can find. We turn the battlefield itself into a weapon. We make the enemy's strength into a weakness." Staff Sergeant Lisa Thompson was helping to organize the prisoner camps. "Sir, final count is coming in. We captured over 300,000 enemy soldiers. The rest were eliminated in the blast." Petty Officer First Class Megan Foster added her report. "Total human casualties, 0. Total Allied casualties, less." and 1,000. Total enemy casualties, over 700,000. These numbers were incredible. In the history of galactic warfare, no one had ever achieved such a lopsided victory against the Zirathi. News of the battle spread quickly through the galaxy. Within days, every species in the Galactic Council had heard about the humans who defeated an unstoppable army with just 20 soldiers. Back on the Council world, the great assembly hall was packed. Every seat was filled, and many aliens stood in the aisles. They had all come to hear about the human victory. Admiral Carter and his team stood in the center of the hall once again. But this time, nobody was laughing. The aliens looked at the humans with awe and respect. Some seemed afraid. Vexmore, the war marshal who had mocked humanity just days before, rose slowly from his seat. His voice was much quieter than before. Gone was the arrogance and contempt. Now he spoke with the tone of someone who had learned a hard lesson. The Galactic Council has reviewed the reports from Kepler 442b, he announced. The human forces achieved a complete victory against overwhelming odds. They saved the planet and captured hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers. The hall was silent as everyone waited for his next words. The Council formally recognizes Earth's application for membership in the Galactic Alliance, Vexmore continued. Furthermore, we request that humanity establish a military academy to teach other species these new tactics. The aliens began to make sounds of agreement. Clicking, rumbling, whistling noises filled the hall as different species showed their approval. The Crystal Ambassador, who had mocked the humans before, stood up next. Her voice was respectful now. We apologize for underestimating your people. We have learned that true strength cannot be measured by size or numbers alone. Admiral Carter stepped forward to address the assembly. We are honored to join your alliance. But remember, we did not win because we are better than you. We won because we thought differently. He looked around the hall at all the alien faces, watching him. Every species here has unique strengths. The Kraxan are brave and strong. The Vorthik are tough and determined. The Zephyrians are wise and patient. Humans add creativity and adaptability to that mix. Together, he continued, we will be stronger than any of us could be alone. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but it is less dangerous when we work together and learn from each other. The hall erupted in sounds of approval. Aliens who had laughed at the humans days before now stood and showed their respect in the ways of their different cultures. Later, as the humans prepared to return to Earth, General Zeke-Tar approached Admiral Carter one last time. I have fought in 100 battles, the old Kraxan said. I have seen every kind of warfare that exists in this galaxy. But I have never seen anything like what you did on Kepler 442b. It is not magic, Admiral Carter replied. It is just a different way of thinking about problems. Any species can learn it. Will you really teach us? General Zeke-Tar asked hopefully. Admiral Carter smiled. Of course. That is what allies do. They help each other become stronger. As the human ship prepared to leave for Earth, Admiral Carter thought about what had happened. His people had joined the galactic community, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the one thing that had always defined humanity, the ability to find a way to win against impossible odds. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. And the Zirathi, along with any other species that threatened the peace, would soon learn that there were new rules in warfare. Rules written by a small species from a little blue planet that refused to give up. No matter how bad things looked, humanity had earned its place among the stars. And they had done it the human way, by thinking outside the box, using every advantage they could find, and never, ever fighting fair when the stakes were high. The small human army had proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to play by the established rules. And the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The attack began before dawn. The sky lit up with bright flashes as the Zirathi ships in orbit started bombing the city. The ground shook like an earthquake as huge explosions rocked the buildings. Windows shattered and pieces of concrete fell. From the sky like deadly rain, Admiral Carter crouched in his hidden command post and watched the enemy ships through his binoculars. The ships were firing energy beams that could melt steel and plasma bombs that burned hotter than the sun. But they were only hitting the outer parts of the city, just like the humans had predicted. "All teams, report status," Admiral Carter said into his radio. "Team Alpha ready," replied Major Paul Anderson from his position in the factory district. "Team Bravo ready," said Captain Kelly Roberts from the residential area. "Team Charlie ready," reported Master Sergeant Chris Taylor from the industrial zone. One by one, all 20 humans checked in. They were spread throughout the city in carefully chosen hiding spots. Each person had a specific job to do when the ground attack started. The orbital bombing lasted for 30 minutes. When it stopped, the city was covered in smoke and dust. Many buildings were damaged, but the humans had predicted this too. All their important equipment was hidden in underground tunnels and basement rooms that the bombs could not reach. Then came the sound that everyone had been dreading. It started as a low buzzing noise, like giant angry bees. But it got louder and louder until it became a roar that shook the ground. "Here they come," whispered Sergeant Jake Phillips from his hiding spot. The first wave of Zirathi drones came, down from the sky like black rain. Thousands of them landed on the outer edges of the city. They were even more terrifying in person than in the pictures. 8 feet tall, covered in black armor, with glowing red eyes and sharp claws, they moved in perfect coordination, like parts of a giant machine. No individual thought, no fear, no hesitation. Just pure deadly purpose directed by their hive mind. The alien defenders opened fire immediately. The Krasin heavy weapons made loud booming sounds as they shot energy bolts at the attackers. The Vorthic plasma cannons created bright flashes that lit up the morning sky. Other alien weapons made buzzing, crackling, and whooshing sounds. But there were too many enemies. For every Zirathi drone that fell, 10 more took its place. The defensive line began to crack under the pressure. "Fall back to secondary positions," General Zektar ordered his forces. "Follow the retreat routes exactly as planned." The alien soldiers began to pull back into the city. They followed the green-marked paths that the humans had shown them. 2. The Zirathi. It looked like the defenders were breaking and running in panic. The drones pressed forward eagerly, following their retreating enemies deeper into the city. This was exactly what Admiral Carter had been waiting for. "Team Alpha, you are clear to begin," he said calmly into his radio. Major Anderson pressed a button on his remote control. 3 city blocks erupted in massive explosions. Fire and smoke billowed into the air as buildings collapsed on hundreds of Zirathi drones. The sound was so loud that windows broke 3 blocks away. The Zirathi advance slowed for a moment as the drones tried to understand what had happened. But their hive mind quickly analyzed the situation and ordered them to continue forward. They stepped over the rubble and kept coming. "Team Bravo, your turn," Admiral Carter ordered. Captain Roberts triggered her explosives next. More buildings exploded, taking out another wave of attackers. But the humans were just getting started. "Chief Johnson, begin psychological operations." Admiral Carter commanded. Suddenly, every speaker in the city came alive with the most terrifying sounds anyone had ever heard. Wolves howling, lions roaring, hyenas laughing, humans screaming, and bears growling all at the same time. The noise echoed off the buildings and seemed to come from everywhere at once, even the emotionless. Zirathi drones seemed affected by the horrible sounds. Their advance slowed as their sensors were overwhelmed by the audio assault. "Sir, the enemy is showing confusion," reported Petty Officer Megan Foster from her observation post. "Their formation is starting to break up." "Good," Admiral Carter replied. "Sergeant Chun, light them up." Andrew Chun activated his control over the city's electrical system. Streetlights began flashing on and off in random patterns. Electronic billboards displayed frightening images of Earth's most dangerous predators. Traffic lights blinked in sequences that hurt to look at. The Zirathi found themselves in a city that had gone completely mad. Explosions came from everywhere. Terrible sounds filled the air, and lights flashed in patterns that made no sense. It was psychological warfare on a scale that no one in the galaxy had ever attempted. But the real trap was still coming. The alien forces continued their plan. Retreat, leading more and more Zirathi drones into the heart of the city. The humans had calculated everything perfectly. Every street the enemy took, every building they captured, every route they followed led them closer to the center of the trap. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis was waiting in the water treatment plant. She watched her monitors as the enemy forces spread throughout the eastern district. When enough of them were in position, she activated her part of the plan. Deploying chemical agents into the water supply, she reported the chemicals she had put into the water were not deadly, but they were very effective. Any Zirathi drone that drank the water would become sick and weak within an hour. Their coordination would suffer, their reactions would slow, and their combat effectiveness would drop dramatically. The Zirathi did not know about the trap. Their drones were programmed to refuel and rehydrate whenever possible during long battles. They drank from the city's water fountains and fire hydrants without suspicion. "Sir, enemy forces are beginning to show signs of chemical exposure," reported Technical Sergeant Rachel Kim, who was monitoring enemy communications. "Their movement patterns are becoming erratic." Admiral Carter watched the battle progress from his command post. Everything was going according to plan. The Zirathi were falling into the trap exactly as predicted. But the biggest surprise was still to come. For 6 hours, the battle raged through the city. The alien defenders fought bravely, following the retreat pattern perfectly. The Zirathi pushed deeper and deeper into the urban maze, thinking they were winning. But with each block they captured, they were actually walking into a carefully prepared killing ground. The humans had turned the entire city into a weapon. And now it was time to pull the trigger. "All teams fall back to final positions," Admiral Carter ordered. "Chief Parker, prepare the main event." Chief Warrant Officer Brian Parker had spent all day preparing for this moment. In the central plaza of the city, he had built the largest conventional explosive device in the planet's history. It was made from every bomb, every fuel tank, every chemical container, and every flammable material they could find. The explosion would be visible from space. "Sir, approximately 400,000 enemy drones are now in the target zone," reported Lieutenant Colonel Ben Foster. Admiral Carter looked at his watch. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and not enough enemies would be caught in the blast. Too late, and some might escape. "All Allied forces, emergency evacuation of downtown area," he announced over the radio. "You have 15 minutes to clear the blast zone." The alien soldiers ran for their lives, following the escape routes the humans had prepared. They had no idea what was coming, but they trusted the humans who had shown them so many impossible things already. 10 minutes to detonation," Chief Parker announced. The Zirathi drones continued to pour into the central plaza, thinking they were about to capture the most important part of the city. Their hive mind was focused on the victory that seemed so close. 5 minutes to detonation. Admiral Carter took one last look at the tactical display. Almost 500,000 enemy soldiers were packed into an area less than 2 miles wide. It was the perfect target. 1 minute to detonation. All personnel take cover. The humans and their alien allies crouched behind buildings and in underground shelters far from the blast zone. The city became strangely quiet as everyone waited for what was about to happen. Detonation in 10 seconds, Chief Parker announced. 5, 4.3, 2.1. The explosion was like a second sun being born on the planet's surface. The flash was so bright that it could be seen through closed eyelids. The sound was so loud that it shattered windows 50 miles away. The ground shook so hard that people fell down hundreds of miles from the blast. When the light faded and the dust settled, the central plaza was gone. In its place was a crater so big that it looked like a meteor had hit the city. And in that crater, there was nothing left of the 400,000 Zirathi drones who had been there moments before. The remaining enemy forces stood in shock. For the first time in their history, the Zirathi hive mind experienced something it had never felt before: fear. While the alien soldiers prepared their big guns and built walls, the humans did something completely different. They split up into small groups and went to strange places around the city. The aliens watched them with confusion and growing worry. Major Paul Anderson led his team to the factory district. The buildings there were tall and dark, with big smokestacks reaching toward the sky. Most of the factories had been shut down when the war started, but they were still full of useful things. "What exactly are we looking for?" asked Sergeant Jake Phillips as he followed Technical Sergeant Rachel Kim through an old chemical plant. "Anything that can explode," Admiral Carter's voice came through their radio. "Or anything that can be made to explode." Sergeant Phillips looked around at all the big metal containers and pipes. "Sir, I do not know much about chemistry." Technical Sergeant Kim smiled as she read the labels on the containers. "I do. And this place is like a gold mine. Look at all this stuff." She pointed to different containers as she walked past them. "Fertilizer, cleaning chemicals, industrial solvents, paint thinner. All the ingredients we need to make some very big booms." Meanwhile, Captain Kelly Roberts had taken her team to the civilian part of the city. Most of the people who lived there had already left, but their houses and buildings were still standing. And they were full of useful things too. Staff Sergeant Nicole Rodriguez was crawling through the sewer tunnels under the city. The tunnels were dark and smelled bad, but she was making a map of every pipe and passage. "Admiral, these tunnels go everywhere. We could move around the whole city without being seen." "Good," Admiral Carter replied. "Keep mapping. We will need to know every way in and out." Back at the command center, General Zektar was getting more and more frustrated. He watched the humans on his security cameras as they did things that made no sense. What are they doing? He demanded for the 10th time. "The enemy will attack in 4 hours, and they are playing with garbage and old pipes." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis was in the city's water treatment plant. She had connected her computer to the plant's control system and was studying how it worked. "Admiral, I have good news. I can control all the water that goes to the eastern part of the city. Can you put things in the water?" Admiral Carter asked. "Yes, sir, whatever we want. The plant has chemical injection systems for cleaning the water. We can use them to add other things instead." Sergeant Major Kevin Martinez was having the time of his life. As the team's explosives expert, he felt like a kid in a candy store. Every building the humans were going to abandon was getting a special surprise installed. "I have never had so much to work with," he said happily as he wired up another improvised bomb. "These factories have everything: chemical explosives, fuel tanks, pressurized gas lines. When this goes off, it will be beautiful." The alien soldiers watched the humans work and shook their heads. It looked like the humans were planning to destroy the city instead of defend it. Some aliens began to wonder if the humans had gone crazy from fear. "They are cowards," said Commander Vex High of the Vorthic forces. He was a creature that looked like he was made of living rock. "They are preparing to run away before the battle even starts." But Admiral Carter was not planning to run away. He was planning something that no one in the galaxy had ever tried before. He was planning to turn the entire city into a weapon. Chief Petty Officer Alex Johnson was in the city's communications center. He had connected his equipment to the emergency broadcast system that could send messages to every speaker in the city. But instead of preparing evacuation announcements, he was loading something very different. "Sir, I have uploaded the audio files," he reported. Wolves howling, lions roaring, hyena laughter, human screams, and that recording of the bear attack from last year. When I play this through every speaker in the city at full volume, it is going to sound like hell on earth. Admiral Carter studied the map of the city one more time. Every street, every building, every tunnel was marked with different colors. Red marks showed where explosives were hidden. Blue marks showed where chemical traps were set. Yellow marks showed escape routes for the alien soldiers. "Sir," said Petty Officer First Class Megan Foster, "the enemy scouts are getting closer. They will reach the city outskirts in 2 hours." "Perfect," Admiral Carter replied. "That gives us just enough time to finish our preparations." The humans had been working for 4 hours without stopping. They were tired and dirty, but they were ready. The city looked the same from the outside, but inside it had become a death trap waiting to spring out master. Sergeant Chris Taylor reported from the industrial district. "All explosive charges are in place. When the enemy takes these buildings, they will get a very nasty surprise." Lieutenant Amy Brooks had been studying the enemy's previous attacks. "Sir, the Zirathi always follow the same pattern. They come in fast and hard, trying to overwhelm defenders with numbers. They do not scout carefully or watch for traps." "Good," Admiral Carter said. "Arrogance will be their weakness." Captain Steve Rodriguez was with the alien commanders, trying to explain the human plan. But it was hard because the plan was so different from anything the aliens had ever seen before. "You want us to retreat?" General Zektar asked in disbelief. "You want us to give up the outer defenses without a fight?" "Not give up," Rodriguez explained. "We want you to pull back in a specific pattern. We have marked safe routes for you to follow. If you retreat along these paths, you will lead the enemy exactly where we want them to go." General Zektar looked at the map Rodriguez was showing him. The retreat routes were marked in green. They twisted and turned through the city in a strange pattern that seemed to make no sense. "This is madness," General Zektar said. "A fighting retreat with no logical pattern. It goes against every rule of warfare." "That is the point," Admiral Carter said as he joined the conversation. "The Zirathi expect you to fight like soldiers. They expect defensive lines and strategic positions. They do not expect you to lead them into a trap." Sergeant First Class Andrew Chun had spent the day studying the city's power grid. Now he was ready to put his plan into action. "Sir, I can control every light, every electrical system, and every automated system in the city. When the battle starts, I can make this place very confusing for the enemy." "How confusing?" Admiral Carter asked. Chun smiled. "Imagine being in a maze where the walls keep moving, the lights keep changing, and loud noises come from every direction. That confusing." The alien soldiers were still setting up their normal defenses. They built walls and positioned their big guns toward the enemy. They were brave and strong, but they were preparing to fight a normal battle. The humans were preparing something that was not normal at all. They were preparing to turn the laws of warfare upside down. "Admiral," said Ryan Clark, the communications officer, "I have been listening to enemy radio traffic. The Zirathi are massing for their final attack. They have over 1 million drones, ready to assault the city. 1 million, Admiral Carter repeated thoughtfully. That is a lot of enemies. But it is also a lot of targets all in one place. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Foster was looking at satellite pictures of the enemy army. Sir, they are lined up in standard attack formation. Dense ranks, heavy support weapons in the back, fast assault units in front. Very predictable. Predictable is good, Admiral Carter said. Predictable means we can plan for it. The last hour before the attack was very quiet. The alien soldiers waited nervously at their positions. The humans made final checks on their equipment and reviewed their plans one more time. Everyone remember, Admiral Carter said over the radio to his team. We are not trying to defeat them in a fair fight. We are trying to make them defeat themselves. Stay smart, stay hidden, and trust the plan. As the enemy army approached the city, the humans took their positions. They were not on the front lines with the alien soldiers. Instead, they were scattered throughout the city in hidden spots, waiting to spring their trap. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had their own way of fighting wars, and it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The human ship came out of hyperspace with a bright flash of light. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge looking at the big screen in front of him. What he saw made his stomach feel sick. The planet Kepler 442b looked like it was covered in angry fireflies. Thousands and thousands of enemy ships flew around it in circles. The ships were not made of metal like human ships. They looked like they were alive. They had smooth curves and bumps like giant insects. Strange lights pulsed under their skin like hulls. Dear God, whispered Captain Rodriguez as he stood next to the Admiral. How many ships are there? Lieutenant Colonel Ben Foster was counting the enemy ships on his computer. His face got more worried as the numbers got bigger. At least 10,000 ships, sir. Maybe more. They are everywhere. The Zirathi ships were not pretty to look at. They were dark colors like brown and black and green. They had no straight lines or sharp edges. Instead, they curved and twisted like the bodies of huge bugs. Some were small and fast. Others were big as mountains and moved slowly through space. Commander Lisa Martinez checked her weapons one more time. She had done this 100 times already, but it made her feel better. Sir, are we really going down there? Admiral Carter nodded. We gave our word. We will keep it. The human ship was called the Valiant. It was small compared to the Zirathi fleet, but it was fast and quiet. The pilot, Major Susan Wright, flew it carefully toward the planet. She tried to avoid the enemy ships as much as possible. There, pointed Lieutenant Amy Brooks. I can see the city where our allies are hiding. On the planet's surface was a city called New Geneva City. It looked like a small bright spot surrounded by darkness. Around it were camps full of alien soldiers. These were the good guys who were trying to stop the Zirathi from taking the planet. The city was under attack. Even from space, they could see explosions lighting up the night. Fires burned in many places. Parts of the city were already destroyed, and Smoking Got Major Wright found a safe place to land near the city. The ship touched down with a soft bump. Admiral Carter and his 20 soldiers got ready to leave the ship. They checked their weapons and their radios one more time. Remember, Admiral Carter told his team, we are here to help. We are here to learn. And we are here to show them what humans can do. They walked off the ship and into the war zone. The air smelled like smoke and burning metal. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of battle. Explosions boomed like thunder. Strange alien. Weapons made buzzing and crackling sounds. A guide was waiting for them. It was a soldier from one of the alien armies. It looked like a lizard that walked on 2 legs. It had green scales and yellow eyes like Dexmore, but it was much smaller. This way, the lizard soldier said. General Zektar is waiting for you. They walked through the city streets. Buildings were damaged and broken. Windows were smashed. Some walls had big holes blown in them. The humans saw alien soldiers everywhere. They were building walls and setting up big guns. The alien soldiers were much bigger than the humans. The Kraxan soldiers looked like giant lizards with thick armor. The Vorthix soldiers looked like walking rocks with 4 arms. There were other kinds of aliens too, but the humans did not know their names. All of the alien soldiers stared at the humans as they walked by. Some looked confused. Others looked like they felt sorry for them. A few laughed and made jokes to each other in languages the humans could not understand. They reached the command center. It was underground in a big bunker made of thick concrete. Inside, the walls were covered with screens showing maps and numbers. Alien officers stood around big tables covered with papers and small models of the city. General Zetar was the biggest Kraxan the humans had ever seen. He was even bigger than Nexmore. His scales were dark red instead of green, and he had scars all over his face and arms. He was looking at a big map when the humans walked in. So, General Zektar said without looking up, the humans have arrived. 20 soldiers to fight 1,000,000 enemies. This should be interesting. His voice was deep and rough. It sounded like rocks grinding together. When he finally looked at the humans, his yellow eyes showed no respect, only pity. General, Admiral Carter said politely, we are here to help you defend this city. General Zektar's mouth opened and showed rows of sharp teeth. This was probably supposed to be a smile, but it looked scary instead. Help? You brought 20 people to fight an army that has already destroyed 3 planets. He pointed at the map with one of his clawed fingers. Look at this. We have 50,000 Kraxan, heavy infantry, 30,000 Vorthix shock troops, 20,000 other soldiers from different worlds, more than 100,000 total, and we are still losing. Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Lee stepped forward. She was the team's planning expert. What exactly are we fighting against? An alien officer that looked like a walking tree answered her. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through leaves. The Zirathi drones. They are the most feared soldiers in the galaxy. The tree alien touched a button, and the big screen on the wall lit up. It showed pictures of the enemy soldiers. The humans felt their blood turn cold when they saw them. Zirathi drones were like giant bugs that walked on 2 legs. They were 8 feet tall and covered in hard black shell-like armor. They had 4 arms with sharp claws on the ends. Their heads looked like ant heads, but with glowing red eyes. They feel no pain, the tree alien explained. They never get tired. They never retreat. They follow orders from their hive mind without question. And there are millions of them. Staff Sergeant Lisa Thompson studied the pictures carefully. What about their weapons? Energy guns built into their arms, General Zektar answered. They can cut through our strongest armor like it was paper. They also have plasma grenades and acid throwers. Sergeant First Class Mike Adams whistled softly. That is a lot of firepower. Yes, General Zektar agreed. And they are massing for a final attack. Our scouts say they will hit us in 6 hours. After that, this city will fall and the planet will belong to the Zirathi. The room became very quiet. Everyone could feel the weight of those words. In 6 hours, they would all probably be dead. Admiral Carter looked around the room at all the worried faces. Alien and human alike, they all knew the situation was hopeless. But something in the Admiral's eyes was different. While everyone else looked scared or defeated, he looked thoughtful. General, Admiral Carter said slowly, show me everything. Every map, every report, every piece of information you have about this city and the enemy. Why? General Zektar asked. "What difference will it make?" Admiral Carter smiled for the first time since arriving on the planet. "Because humans do not fight the same way you do. We do not just throw soldiers at a problem until it goes away. We think, we plan, we find ways to win that no one else thought of." Captain Kelly Roberts was already studying the city maps with Sergeant Jake Phillips. Technical Sergeant Rachel Kim was looking at the power and water systems. Master Sergeant Chris Taylor was asking questions about the city's factories and chemical plants. The alien officers watched in confusion as the humans spread out around the room and started asking strange questions. They did not ask about weapons or armor or how many soldiers they had. Instead, they asked about sewers and electrical systems and what kinds of chemicals were stored in the city. "What are you doing?" General Zektar demanded. Admiral Carter looked up from a map he was studying with Major Paul Anderson. "We are doing what humans do best, General. We are getting ready to cheat." The big room was full of noise. Strange sounds came from all the different alien races sitting in their seats. Some made clicking sounds with their mouths. Others made deep rumbling noises. The air smelled like metal and something else that humans could not name. Admiral John Carter stood in the middle of the room. He looked small next to all the giant aliens around him. Behind him stood 20 human soldiers. They wore green uniforms and carried weapons that looked tiny compared to what the aliens had. The room was huge. It had a high ceiling that seemed to go up forever. Bright lights hung down and made everything look sharp and clear. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal that reflected the lights. Around the room sat hundreds of different creatures. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some looked like they were made of rock or crystal. Commander Lisa Martinez stood behind the Admiral. She was nervous, but tried not to show it. Her hands stayed steady on her weapon. She had trained for this day for years, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The aliens were so big and scary looking. A huge creature stood up from one of the front seats. It was covered in dark green scales and had yellow eyes that glowed like fire. It was at least 12 feet tall, and its muscles bulged under its scaly skin. Sharp teeth showed when it opened its mouth to speak. This was Dexmore, the war marshal of the hegemony forces. "Look at these humans," Dexmore said in a voice like thunder. His words echoed around the big room. "They want to join our alliance. But look how small they are. Look how weak they look." Many of the aliens started to laugh. The sound was strange and scary. Some made barking noises. Others made high whistling sounds. Captain Steve Rodriguez felt his face get hot with anger. But he kept quiet like a good soldier should. Lieutenant Amy Brooks stood next to Captain Rodriguez. She watched the aliens laugh at them. She had seen war before. She had fought in battles on Earth, but this was different. This was worse than any battle, because they were being laughed at instead of respected. A creature that looked like it was made of blue crystal stood up next. Light seemed to dance inside its body as it moved. This was the Zephyrian ambassador. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. Maybe these humans have good weapons to make up for being so small and weak, the crystal being said. But the way it said, the words made it clear that it was making fun of them. More laughter filled the room. Some aliens slapped their legs, or whatever they had, instead of legs. Others made loud noises that might have been clapping. The humans felt their faces burn with shame and anger. Admiral Carter stepped forward. He was not a young man anymore. His hair was gray, and his face had lines from years of worry and hard choices. But his back was straight, and his voice was strong. "We may be small," Admiral Carter said loud enough for everyone to hear. "We may not be as strong as you, but humans have something that you cannot see just by looking at us. We have Enough. Dexmore roared so loud that some of the smaller aliens jumped in their seats. We do not want to hear your words. Words are cheap and easy. If Earth wants to join our alliance, you must prove that you can fight. The room became very quiet. Even the small noises that the aliens had been making stopped. Everyone knew what was coming next. There is a test, Dexmore continued. All new members must pass this test. You must defend one of our worlds that is under attack. The planet is called Kepler 442b. The Zirathi are trying to take it. Several aliens made worried sounds when they heard the name Zirathi. These were the most feared enemies in the galaxy. They were like bugs, but much bigger and meaner. They attacked in huge groups and never gave up. They had taken many worlds. Already Sergeant Ben Murphy leaned close to Corporal Kate Williams. He whispered so quietly that only she could hear. That is a death mission. The Zirathi have taken 3 whole planets just this month. No one can stop them. Corporal Williams nodded. She knew he was right. She had read the reports. The Zirathi were unstoppable. They came in numbers too big to count. They had weapons that could cut through the strongest armor. They never got tired, and they never retreated. Admiral Carter looked back at his team. 20 soldiers. That was all Earth could send. He saw Tony Garcia, who knew how to blow things up. He saw Maria Santos, who could shoot better than anyone. He saw Ryan Clark, who could talk to people far away using radio equipment. Each person in his team was the best at what they did, but they were still just 20 people. The aliens in this room had armies with millions of soldiers. They had weapons that could destroy whole cities. They had ships that could travel between stars and days instead of years. But Admiral Carter also knew something about humans that these aliens did not know. Humans were good at finding ways to win, even when winning seemed impossible. Humans were good at using their brains instead of just their muscles. Humans were good at surprising their enemies. We accept the test, Admiral Carter said in a clear, strong voice. The room exploded with noise. Some aliens laughed even harder than before. Others made sounds that might have been surprise. A few seemed worried or confused. Dexmore showed his Z. Sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. Good. You have 1 day to prepare. Then you will go to Kepler 442b. If you can help save that world, you will be welcome in our alliance. If you fail... He did not finish the sentence, but everyone knew what he meant. Admiral Carter saluted the alien council. It was a human gesture that none of them understood, but they could tell it meant respect and determination. Behind him, his 20 soldiers also saluted Dot as they left the big room. The aliens continued to talk and laugh. Most of them thought they would never see these humans again. The Zirathi would kill them all within hours of landing on Kepler 442b. But Admiral Carter was already thinking. His mind was working on plans and ideas. He knew his people were good at more than just fighting. They were good at thinking. They were good at finding new ways to solve old problems. The test would begin soon, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do.